Cool, cool.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about
it.
sex. Yeah. Woo. Awesome. Good to see you today, Juliet. So let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that are related to sexuality.
Yes.
Oh.
And there's so much that people just don't dare talk about, right? And
So
that's the thing. It's like, it's not shameful. It's you came onto this earth because of sex.
Certainly you did.
Let's just be honest about it, right?
Absolutely. So what I think is really cool is that we can really start bringing about the things that have held us back so that we can come into this really big, alive, vibrant self within our own sexuality. And so what about if we even kind of back up and talk about the things about why we're held back within our own sexuality, the beliefs that we've adopted, and when we've been young, and how many of us truly have a good sex ed.
Right? I mean, so I'm Dutch, like right? And in Holland, we just didn't have that much sex ed. I mean, I did move to the States when I was 12 for a few years, but then came back and did an American school. And even there, it was very much about biological stuff, so yes, where are the testicles and where are the ovaries, but it wasn't ever about, I knew how babies were made, but it wasn't about pleasure. It was just like the functionality of these things.
Yeah, and when you remove pleasure, then it is the functionality of this is there, that's there, this is there. And so then there's so much shame when we actually start to explore ourselves and feel all this wealth of pleasure and arousal and movement and gyration and sound, and we can't express it.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's just so sad, right? And then all the influences from outside, like the conditioning again. What has your religion taught you about sex? Mm-hmm. What outside influences? What did your parents teach you about sex? What did you learn at school? I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Did you learn it from your peers? Did you have to listen from your friends? It's like, oh my God, when he does this and that, that's what you'll feel. I remember, talking to my friends about it, and I had an older friend who was like 4 years older than I, so obviously a bit further ahead. So I'd be like, oh my God, what did it feel like? And I get really excited trying to hear from a first-hand experience instead of when I grew up, there wasn't internet so much, so not until much later. So you really had to look at magazines and hear from friends, read books about it, learn from your peers and your teachers.
It's so true. And so I find this with so many folks that we just didn't have a lot of education. And I, again, need to give a lot of props to my mom because she was really, really open about everything. And so I came into sexuality in a really liberated way, and somewhat to, I'm not going to say a fault, but it set me apart. I felt like other often because I knew a lot of the stuff that was going on in terms of sexuality and other people didn't. And so there was that segregation of, I knew something other people didn't. And so, everybody came to me, or I was looked at as, the slut because I knew.
Got it.
So a lot of times what I find is so many people have repressed themselves because either they do like their sexuality, how many people is that the truth for them? And or repressed or suppressed because they just don't know. They didn't know.
And you touched upon saying that, so you knew what was going on and then you were called the slut. Mm-hmm. But then, I mean, if we look at culture, if men or boys would know, then it's like, whoa, honcho. Yeah. And then if girls would know, and it's like, no, you're a slut, you know? It's like, with no substance. And of course, being called a slut, I remember growing up, that's just not something that you want, because, I mean, I've got 4 kids, 2 girls, twin girls and 2 boys. And I remember my sons talking to me at one point saying, oh, no, 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 the girls don't want to hang out with those girls because they're considered sluts, and you can't get rid of that name. I'm like, even now, yeah, they're 21, 20, and 19, both of those. It's like crazy that this still carries on today, that, actually the expression of sexuality is still something that people get shamed for.
Yes. And it's deep within the bones, like it's deep within who we are, that quality of shame. And it's a conundrum, or it brings about a huge rift within the self when you have the ability to feel into yourself and know the things that you like or know the things you don't like, and then all of society or all of peers or whatever say that it's not okay. And so it really does create so much rift within the body. And and then all of the polarities that come with that, the good girl, the bad girl, the slut, the puritan, and so that that creates a lot of problem, for men as well. For, men are supposed to be, as we know, the studs, and they're supposed to know what to do. But
Absolutely. But who teaches them? Where do they find the exact same places? And then no wonder that the last 20 years, porn and the access to porn has become so much easier, that the younger and younger kids they start looking at porn. So I remember having a large, big discussion with all 4 of mine. I said, hey, porn is people acting. Yeah, I mean, these days you can also get porn which isn't acting. A lot of people put their own stuff on these porn websites. But I just said, listen, I mean, so I said to my boys, I said, all these girls that you're going to be with have brothers and have fathers. How would you feel if a boy, treated your sisters this way? We're going to fucking kill them. I'm like, okay, just remember that when you take someone out. And they've actually really treated everyone beautifully. I don't know. Yeah, the boys are like, mommy, sex, can't talk to you about it much. The girls are much easier, but the boys are like, yeah, no. But I know that is one thing that I installed in them. I said, yeah, you can talk about it with me. You can talk about it with your dad if you want to, but always just remember to treat everyone with respect, including yourself.
yeah, certainly. And I think I think that's really important, as well as knowing that everybody is so wired differently. Like we have so many different body nervous systems, and how we're actually wired. Both you and I are trained in something called erotic um, blueprints, which really does look towards how we are wired 5 different ways. Would you mind just even touching on that, just to let our
Right?
viewers? Yeah.
Yeah, so let's chat about that a little bit. So, the erotic blueprints, there are 5 ways. The first one is the energetic. So, it's a person that can feel the energy when they come into a room and often wants people to stay a bit further away. They like their way into pleasure is actually teasing, and it's off the body movement, so already here they can feel it, or even much higher, so they can have whole body orgasms without actually being touched. And of course there are shadow sides as well, so they'll be in their head, or they'll actually dissociate from their body because there's so much going on in that body, because all the energy, the outside influence are coming into the body, and sometimes you get short circuited. You don't quite know what to happen. So it's like, well, okay, let's just disassociate and just go out of our bodies. So that's I mean, in a real nutshell, right? But that's what happens to the energetics. Do you want to touch on the next one?
Yeah, for sure. And so another one is the folks that are wired in the sensual realm, and these folks really love anything beautiful, aesthetic. They love the whole environment to be a certain way. They love fabrics on their, certain fabrics on their body, and different tastes and smells. And so they really get lit up by all the sensuality in the world. And really, we were brought in a sensual way, right? Like when we came into this world, we really did get birthed into this little sensual, overload. And so um, a lot of times for these folks, they can take in a lot. They can take in a lot of pleasure, a lot of touch, a lot of sensory, long baths and ritual, um, and so it's just this really, they bring, this beautiful kind of delicious delight to the acts of sexuality. And unfortunately for these folks, again, like you were mentioning with where they might get hung up is really getting lost in their head. And so, have you ever sat there having sex, and all of a sudden you start thinking about, there's socks on the floor, or
Yeah.
yeah, right. Or,
Absolutely.
you forgot to get the milk at the grocery store. It's like, oh, you're having this full bodied exploration with your partner, and you're totally lost in your head. So that's essential. Want to carry on?
Completely. I've had that. It's like, oh my God, yeah. Did I turn the gas off or not? Did it right in the middle of it? Or I've got to
Or
call my daughter.
yeah, or is my ass jiggling? Like
Oh,
is my cellulite, doing the jiggle, or what do things smell like?
absolutely. It's like, oh shit, I didn't shave, so you can't go down on me. All these kind of things. But that is also what society has also taught us. Like all these
Yes.
magazines. No, make sure that you're clean and you shave and you this and that, because your
Yeah.
partner will not like it.
And
So
and
all
don't
of those things come in
yeah,
at that
and
point.
don't dare have any smell.
Right? Yeah.
It's like, we're human beings, we have our own smells. It's normal.
I know this is, I mean, I can go out on the tangent and like all the vaginal washes that you're supposed to do this and that, which is all just so bad for it. Anyway,
Yes.
I'm not going to go on that, but yes. So we're with the erotic blueprints, we've done two. So the third one is sexual. And that is really how we see how we have been brought up with sexual, right? So it's all about genitals. We like hearing those words. Um, and it is their way into pleasure as long as they know that they are going to have intercourse. They're actually going to have their genitals touching. And often what they do want is orgasm. They want climax. They don't just want that peak of orgasm, that way, but they want to be able to climax at the end of it. So they're often very quick to get into it. They're always ready. And I mean, great going. And but at the same time, they also have their shadows, the bits that they get hung up on. So often the bits slower going, like the energetics, that kind of touch doesn't quite turn them on as much, or they'll only get off if they know that they're going to have an orgasm afterwards. They'll often talk about cock and boobs and pussy and ass, and this might turn off their partner, who is much more sensual or much more energetic. So this is where you see that they can only get off, often only get off one way. So that's, these are all the shadow sides that we play with. And you don't have to have the shadow sides, but it's one of the things that could show up.
Yeah,
Anything
certainly.
else you want to add there?
Well, what I find with some folks is that these folks are really least likely to admit that they have anything wrong with their sexuality.
Mm,
So a lot of times it's like, well, I've been doing this forever and all my partners were fine. There must be something wrong with you.
completely true. Yeah.
And so I think that it's really important to bring that up, because like you said, for so many people that are not wired this way, then there can be a lot of shame that comes in, because the partner's sitting
Yeah.
there going, well, I've been doing this and TV says that it's this way, and everybody said, the society says it's supposed to be this way, and you're different.
Yeah.
And so they that's kind of
Yeah.
that one of those pieces that I
So
think is really
that's where
important.
it starts rubbing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where we're the different, if you're not the same blueprint, that's where it starts rubbing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so another one that is, it can be both near and dear to both of our hearts because we work with people in this blueprint, and we also have a lot of this in our stacks, is the kink. And so there's a lot of myths with kink. We have a lot of, I think we have a lot of things to break down in this podcast for folks with, and we will be talking about this, in our mastery class and the online group class that we're going to be offering. And but even starting to unpack it here. So with the folks that are really wired for kink, there's a couple ways into kink. So one is psychological based. So it's all like the mind games and the power plays and, you know, fantasy. And then we have the sensation based kink where it's like, things that are, maybe impactful, like slaps or scratches or, binds or bonding, things like that. The beauty to the kink person is that the creativity is phenomenal. There's never the same thing twice. They're imaginative. And where they can get hung up, and they can have really cool orgasms too, right? Like really, really cool ones, because there's just so much diversity within the sexual act. But the problem that the kink folk face is shame, deep shame.
Deep shame.
Why am I like this? Why do I like this? Why do I like this and that? And so because we have so many blocks, and society has put so many blocks on, what's okay, what's not okay. And religion has said, we shouldn't be doing this and shouldn't be doing that. But we are denying ourselves if we do not own the parts that are taboo. So kink really
Mm.
is, just simply put, anything that's taboo for you.
Yeah.
It doesn't
And
need
it's
to
actually
be.
such a beautiful realm to play in, right?
Mhm.
To play into what is taboo for you and then to feel the turn on there. I mean, I've played in BDSM for a long time and done professionally for a while, and still have certain clients. But the full ecstasy, like the out of body orgasms, the subspace you can go in with flogging, or some people even with psychological kink. I mean, kink is such a huge range. I mean, you can play in that for the rest of your life and learn every single day. But like what you said, the taboo bit is just like, for you, it might be taboo to have all the lights on or to leave your curtains open when you're having sex, and to kind of like play with that. What are the things that turn you on there? How to make it more juicy?
Yeah, certainly. Absolutely. And we do have another one that's really, really fun. And so I would love you to
I
shine some
think
light.
yeah, I think we're both shapeshifters, right?
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
last one is a shapeshifter.
Hmm.
So there are the blueprints. We believe that everyone's born as a shapeshifter. So it means that you have your way into pleasure is through all of these. So you have all of these in you, but then the way that you've been brought up, or the way that society kind of like shaped you, you forgot some of these ways into pleasure. So that means that you can have energetic orgasms, you can have, sensuality, smell, like, sensual people, like they bite into a fig and you just see them, you just see them oozing, and then like, it's like almost body orgasm just by eating, by smelling, by hearing something. And then you like sex in the sexual way as well, and the kink, all of that turns you on. And of course, then they all have their hang-ups as well. They could also play in all the shadow sides, in all the like, oh my God, am I smelling down there? Or too much energy, you're too close to me, you need to be way back there. And all the shame of the sexual and of the kink. So it's really a way where we bring our way back to being a shapeshifter by slowly unlocking the bits that are keeping us stuck in all those other blueprints.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that when we have the wherewithal to start looking at the shadows of where we have our own blockages, it just opens, as you said, it just clears away some cloud cover so that you really can start to explore the realms or the realms of possibility,
Mm.
the realms of possibility. um
It kind of becomes a smorgasbord of little things that you can just experience.
a little of this and a little of that, and I want a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and not for a shapeshifter, often, they, because they are exquisite lovers, they can really cater to their partner
Yeah,
and really start to feel not fed and kind of starving. And so
completely.
really, yeah, really finding ways, especially, well, in all with all of these kind of blueprints, or the framework in which we kind of are living, um, to find these ways that we can feed ourselves, and I think that's a really important thing to talk about, Juliet. I know that both of us feel
Absolutely.
very, very, very deeply about the place of self-pleasure, the place
Completely.
where, and so speak a little bit about that
And
self-pleasure.
that's it. It's just like, what is self pleasure? I mean, so often people think, oh my God, I'm going to have to start touching my clit, my boobs. But self pleasure is anything. I mean, self care goes into self pleasure. But, for me, like creating my little altars of little flowers and orchids behind me, that is brings me pleasure. Yeah. Putting on some body cream sometimes. For me, what I've started doing is actually putting on music 3-4 minutes a few times a day, just stopping everything, putting my computer away, and just allowing the music to overtake me and to move and to roll around on the floor, but whatever my body wants to express at that moment. And the more you start doing these kind of practices, um, that really then helps with what is your way into pleasure. How do you like to be touched? I mean, and really start simple. Start with your hands. Do you like soft touch? Do you like off the body touch? And this may change from moment to moment, but really start to get to know, what does your body like? And you might be surprised. Start taking a fork. Like using just normal kitchen implements and just say, oh, what does metal feel like? Oh, do I like that? Do I not like that?
Yeah, like even an ice cube,
Right?
an ice cube, cold and warm, things that are even heavy. There's a lot of like weighted blankets out right now, right? There's a lot of, you
Love
know,
this.
yeah. And so just like having that weight on you and being able to just really fully feel into yourself
Yeah.
is such a good way. Brushing your hair with
Right?
food,
I like
with
like
food.
good head
Yeah,
massage. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
like slightly pulling at the roots, not too much. But
Yeah,
and then of course, yes, there is touching your breast massage, yeah, clitoral touching, like the inside of your thighs, and sometimes just putting your hand on top, cupping your vulva. It's like, and for men, obviously, just cupping
just
your
holding.
balls, you're holding your cock. You might just want try different pressures. You might not even want to stimulate yourself yet, but just kind of feel the different pressure. What does that do to you?
Well, and I think too, when we're really starting to come back into ourselves, and not necessarily that we're even out of ourselves, but when we really start to have a conscious practice around being in these bodies and living in these bodies, I always think of it as like the book of our life. And the book of our life would be like 4 feet tall, right? Because there's so many places to explore. What does it actually feel like to feel just the entrance of our pussy, and holding there with no expectation of orgasm, or with um, that it has to lead to anything, or that you have to enjoy it, or it has to be pleasurable, but just to actually get curious
Mm.
about this body that we live in. Because, we go to the shower, we wash up, we do our thing, and it's so unconscious, and we just kind of go through the motions. And so how, even eating, right? So how can we
Conscious
actually,
eating.
yes, how can we actually just pause,
It's all about slowing down, right? It's
taking a
about
breath?
slowing down and
Mm-hmm.
feeling the sensations, because we go so numb. Like, we keep adding and adding and adding things, and, adding a vibrator and then this and that. And it just, sometimes we're so overstimulated, and, I should talk to you about your nervous system, all about it, right? But this is it. The nervous system is so overgenerated. Slow down, slower touch. And once you can know how to ask for this yourself, and once you've tried it on yourself, then you can ask a partner. I mean, it was funny. I was talking the other day. One of the exercises I give my couples is I have them make tea for each other. So they put different cups out, and so say it's a man and a female. So the female asks her husband or her partner, I would like chamomile tea in a really fine bone china cup with a tiny splash of lemon juice and a tiny bit of agave syrup. So he comes back, and with a little spoon on the side, don't stir it. So it's like quite precise, right? So he comes back, makes it, comes back. And then it's like what we do, we often don't receive it. We'll
Correct.
receive it and we'll just say, oh yeah, that's fine. It's like, no, taste it. Is it exactly to your specifications? And then if it's not, how can you actually then adjust? So they're then adjusting, I love it, and could you add this, that? And the funny thing is, once they start doing that, in normal life a little bit more. And then it's much easier to adjust your lever. It's like, oh, could you go a little bit to the left? Could you go a little bit to the right?
I think you just mentioned something that is so important, and it is the active communication. I love it. And so I really love how you're massaging my shoulders, and it would
Yeah,
feel even more delicious if you
yeah,
gave me a little bit more pressure.
yeah,
Yes, like that. So it's like it's a three-part step, right? And so
completely.
so many times we don't have a voice in the bedroom. So we
Mm-hmm.
do, like you said, have to bridge it from normal life. And so I love what you said. And so again, I just want to go over that again, what you had said. I love that you're doing this act of whatever kindness for me, and then you just add in whatever it is that you
Yeah,
want, a little tweak on, and then on the back end of it, some kind of
feedback.
appreciation.
Yeah,
So
feedback, doing it great. Thank you so much.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so often we just grin and bear, and for both, for men, woman, gender, other genders, we were in the bedroom or we're having sex, and we're not having the best sex of our lives. We're just having mediocre or barely okay. Or sometimes we're just gritting our teeth and we're like, don't really like this. But yeah, if you can't explain how you would like things and how you would like things to change, then it's very difficult to have that communication. And that's where it really starts, with starting to feel yourself.
and circling back to when we talked about the sunshine looks beautiful on your face, by the way. um,
Support.
yes, and circling back to what we said about slowing down with the couples that I work with, I often say, if somebody's in an energetic state, an essential state, and somebody else is, let's say, in a sexual, so someone's really orgasm based and the other person is really just wanting to be in their body and all of that, I'll just say, just while you're making love, pause, pause, and allow these bodies to actually feel what's happening. Because when things are moving so fast and there's so many things going on, for lots of folks, it's too much. And so, as you had mentioned, sometimes people pop out of their body or they just grin and bear it. And
Yeah.
so, how do we come back to this? I call it the holy pause. How do we just
Mm.
do a holy pause where no one is shamed? And it's looked at as like this place of exploration. It's like, wow, look at all these sensations in the body. Wow, look at how fast my mind is going. wow, look at this or that, or, oh, I'm getting a cramp and I didn't even know. I need to adjust here.
Right. And
Mm-hmm.
what we haven't even touched upon is that there are all these different stages that we can be in. Yeah, I mean, someone might have just given childbirth or had a parent pass away. So you're not in a state to go and explore and be adventurous. Yeah, it might just be like, oh, I just want to rest and just, heal a little bit.
Yeah, or someone who is going through a midlife, their midlife, which,
Yeah,
you're so
know
good with,
all
right?
about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the whole part of hormones and the different
Yeah,
chemicals, and, some folks are really, their chemical makeup has shifted, or,
yeah,
their nervous system is running with a lot of fight, flight, freeze in their system. So, there's all these things to consider,
yeah.
you know?
And there's like, what kind of medicines are we taking? What other kinds of things could be blocking us? And it's things that people don't often think about and they don't talk about because
Yes.
it's shameful. Yeah,
Yeah.
like sex should be done behind bedroom closed doors.
Yeah, and for our listeners who are on antidepressants and the inability to get a hard on, or
Yeah,
or when our cock-bodied folks are taking stuff for hair loss and how it creates impotence, and these are just things
completely.
that we don't talk about, and so um, they need to be talked about.
Completely.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean what's coming up a lot for women in menopause is also like the vaginal dryness and just the loss of libido. I mean, just don't feel like it. And then you start looking into it from all different sides. It's like, first of all, where are you? Have you had other things going on in your life? And then to try and see what they and their partner are. Are they coming at it from a completely different way? And that's where it's when you start working with couples like this, it's like, oh my God, after like 2 or 3 sessions, they're like crying and they're like, this is possible again? We could
Yeah.
actually touch each other again and have a really good time?
Yeah, and just like you said, like once you actually see from a bird's eye view, or that holistic view, because let's face it, when we're in our own life, we don't have the ability to see always from a bird's eye view. And so it
Yeah,
often takes that kind of like that observer, that person, to look in and go, hey, we have some imbalance here. We have some, miscommunication there. We have, and um again, that's why you and I are so dedicated to this work, because we've seen massive amounts of coming back together and being able to really thrive in a relationship. So life opens up.
completely. And that's, yeah, some of the bits that we'll touch upon or not touch upon, we'll go in very deep in our course Erotica and of course the mastery much more. But it's where can you bring in a whole different kind of communication, different kind of being with each other, which you might have never thought of and which have always been closed off to you. I mean, I know some people that have all of a sudden opened up their marriage and have gone polyamorous, and yeah, you definitely need a bit of holding there.
Mhm.
I've done all of it, and it's not something easy to transverse unless you have really good boundaries. And I think that's one of the most important things to teach people. What are your no's? What are your yeses? And what does it feel like in your body? Somatically, can you feel it? What a yes is and what a no is. And it's always better to have, if you feel your no, then let it be a no, and then always a next time you can have that shift to a yes, then for you to say yes and then to completely tighten up and not like the experience.
And what I find with boundaries and yeses and nos is everything that you put in the front end. So the more nos that you can have in the beginning, and have your partner really, respect that, all of a sudden the nervous system goes, oh, no problem. This is, I know, okay, now I feel safe. And that's all we really want. I mean, whether we're opening up into polyamory, whether we're staying in monogamy or monogamish, um, allowing ourselves to feel safe with our partner allows us to really play to the edges of where we want to go,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know? And one of the things that is interesting to me and kind of not heartbreaking, but it's one of the reasons that I have a lot of passion along with yourself around helping people who have had intense experiences is often the partner of someone who has had an intense experience wants to meet the person who is needing to go slower, but they don't know how. They don't know how,
No idea. No.
and so they see their partner getting triggered, but they don't know what to do. And so again, I come back to the holy pause in that scenario, really just pausing and allowing somebody to speak if they need, as you were saying, know what a no is in the body, so the person can actually say, no, I can't continue, or yes, I can.
Yeah,
So
and the pause, I love that, the holy pause. I'm gonna gonna use that. But the holy pause also sometimes means in the middle of lovemaking or in the middle of even just kissing, saying, I need one moment. Can we just shake or something? Or can we dance for a minute? Can we eye gaze? Can we do something different?
yeah.
Already that is vulnerable. Saying, are you willing to try to do something different?
Are you willing to try something different? I really think that that's one of the big hallmarks of the work that we do, is this willing. Are you willing to try something new? Are you willing to go to the edges of what you thought was normal? Are you
Right?
willing to get uncomfortable? Are you willing to look at your own shame? Are you willing to look at some of the blocks that's holding you back? And are you willing to go at the speed in which your partner needs to go?
And that's often things to really look at and to be brutally honest. Are you willing and are you able? Sometimes one is very willing and the other one is kind of like dragging their feet, and then not to make the other person wrong because they're going at their speed. And that is something, again, with boundaries, that's something that's just really important. Just because someone is not going at your speed, they don't have to be wrong.
Well, and I think a lot of listeners will be falling in this category of maybe they're willing, but their partner isn't. Or
Yeah,
maybe they're, wanting something different, but they don't know how to express themselves in order to actually ask for what they're wanting. Or they don't even know what they want, but they just know that there's something more. And so,
right.
yeah. And so I think that, with these conversations, it really does start to open up. And I encourage people, just even with the few tips that we give in these, to really start to implement them in your life. You know, the holy pause, and what you had said, Juliet, with yeses and nos, and starting to be able to feel them somatically. You know,
Yeah,
do I want to eat this plum?
absolutely.
And allowing the body to actually respond in a way that is giving this intuitive message of a yes, where the body might open, or a no, where the body might kind of contract or get tighter.
And it will be interesting because we're so used to eating the foods that we think we like. And then if you actually slow down a little bit, you're like, don't like that so much. And it's like, and how do I want to be touched?
Yeah.
If you're in a partnership, that's a beautiful question to ask each other. Just tell me, how do you want to be touched? And to continue asking that question back and forth without a major conversation, but just, so someone, that your partner can air what they want and you can say what you want without any, talk about it, but just the space to be heard and the space to let that come up.
I think when we are seen, heard, loved, and understood, the doors can absolutely blow off our relationship to ourselves
Yeah.
and the relationship to others. And so that simple ask of how do you want to be touched? How do you want to be loved?
Exactly.
Is so integral to good communication.
It's one of the deepest questions, I think, both of those. Yeah, they're just so deep. Yeah, tell me, how do you want to be loved? I tell all my clients to do this several times in my coaching together with them, and I do it with my partner. I think at least once every 2 weeks.
I do it with my partner as well, because that's when you
Yeah.
get to really flow
Yeah.
and find that place of juicy connection.
Mm.
You know, and you get to be understood in who you are, because again, as we touched upon before, we are all wired differently. We all have different stories. We all have different circumstances that are going on in our life. And so it changes, circumstances changes, and who we are change. So to be asked, how do you want to be loved? Oh my goodness, that is a gift.
Right.
It
I
is a
mean, we
gift.
haven't even touched upon, I mean, there's so many other things. I mean, I think we can do a whole one on sexual trauma, and how that is holding people back. But I think we're pretty much at the end of our go, so we might keep that for a next podcast. But really, how do you want to be loved? How do you want to be touched? Think about that. And you might even want to journal about it if you're by yourself, if you don't have a partner. Start exploring with different kinds of touch off the body, then slightly touching, maybe just touching your hairs on your body, on your arm, then a little bit on the skin, a bit softer, then kneading it, and then a bit harsher, and perhaps a few scratches or a little slap. Start playing with it. It just should be fun. People can be so serious about this. Let it be fun.
And being willing to screw it up, right? How many times, I mean, within our own practices, have we touched something on ourselves and been like, whoa, don't like that. It's like, oops, no problem. And then you just recalibrate. You just go back into something that you do. And so that really it's the permission to just be in these bodies and just start to really explore them.
And how much fun you can have with that by fucking up, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And also try things that you don't think you would like. And then all of a sudden be surprised. It's like, whoa, I didn't think I'd like that.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And people are always surprised. If you're willing, if you're coming from it from a place of willingness and exploration, then anything goes.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Just start opening up the conversation, start opening up your mind, and just being willing.
Yep. Going into the land of possibility. What if this was fun? What if that was enjoyable? And just playing with it.
Yeah.
Alrighty, my love.
Cool. I think we're at the end.
Take good care. Much love to you. Much love to all of our listeners.
Much love to all of you. Bye.
Bye.